Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, host of the Football History Dude podcast, right here on the Sports History Network. Now, before we jump into another sports history adventure, let me tell you about this episode's sponsor. We partnered with Rochester Sports Autographs, the largest JSA authenticated autograph distributor in the United States, where you can get deals on over 30,000 autographed sports collectibles. They even have film, music, and other entertainment autographs on the site, so there's something for everyone. Perhaps you're looking for a gift for Mother's Day, or maybe Father's Day. Heck, who needs a holiday as an excuse to give a piece of sports history to your loved ones? Or how about yourself? Today seems like a great day to add to your sports cave, right? But how is RSA able to offer such great deals on JSA authentication, you ask? Well, they do this by making deals directly with athletes, so there are no extra markups, and they choose to pass these savings on to the customer. All orders from Rochester Sports Autographs are top quality and shipped to your door with top authentication and money-back guarantee. And to make sure RSA knows that the Sports History Network sent you, we created a special link for you. All you have to do is head to shoprsa.com/SHN. Again, that's shoprsa.com/SHN. Head over there to get your piece of sports history today.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday Sports on the Sports History Network. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a sports fan. And if you're into sports history, you need to check out newspapers.com. At newspapers.com, you can get access to over 640 million pages worth of news from the U.S., Canada, England, Scotland, Ireland, and more, dating back from 1798. Get a free 1-week subscription to newspapers.com by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/newspapers. And with a paid subscription, you'll also be helping to support the production of this and other Sports History Network shows. That's sportshistorynetwork.com/newspapers. The 1972-73 Miami Dolphins may have had the best 2-year run in NFL history. 32 wins and only 2 losses, with 2 Super Bowl victories. And the 2-loss 1973 Dolphins may have been even better than the undefeated 1972 team. The Miami Dolphins' quest for perfection began on January 16, 1972. Miami suffered a humiliating loss that day, 24-3 to the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl VI. The Dolphins were never in the game, giving up 252 yards rushing while gaining just 80 yards on the ground. But rather than getting down, the Dolphins used that game as a building block. Don Shula's leadership was the key. Shula took over a Dolphins team that hadn't experienced success. Miami joined the AFL in 1966. And the Dolphins were 15-39-2 in 4 seasons before Shula came to town. Meanwhile, Shula was in Baltimore, where he coached the Colts to an impressive 7-year record of 71 wins, 23 losses, and 4 ties in the regular season. But Shula's postseason record was different. He was 0-3. He lost to the Cleveland Browns in the 1964 NFL Championship and again to the Green Bay Packers in a 1965 playoff game. But his worst defeat came in history-making Super Bowl III. The NFL's Colts lost that game 16-7 to a heavy underdog, Joe Namath and the AFL's New York Jets. Moving to Miami gave Shula some life, and he took advantage of it. The Dolphins went from 3-10 with 1 tie in 1969 to 10 wins and 4 losses and the NFL playoffs in 1970. The turnaround ended there, though. The Dolphins lost in their first playoff appearance under Shula to the Oakland Raiders, 21-14. The Dolphins bounced back in 1971. A 10-3-1 record got them back in the playoffs, and they beat the Kansas City Chiefs 27-24 on Christmas Day in a memorable double overtime game. Then the following week, Miami beat the defending Super Bowl champion Baltimore Colts 21-0 to win the AFC Championship. Shula had accomplished the improbable, taking the 1971 Dolphins to the Super Bowl in only his second season in Miami. But that's when Miami suffered the humiliating defeat to Dallas that I spoke about at the beginning of this podcast. So it was back to the drawing board once again. This time, though, Shula and his players not only wanted to get back to the Super Bowl, they wanted to win it. And that's exactly what they did in 1972. But the big story that year was something else. Miami was the first and is still the only team in NFL history to go undefeated. With such a history-making season, you can understand why so much has been written and discussed about those 1972 Miami Dolphins. But the greatness of those Miami Dolphins can't be measured by the 1972 team alone. When combined with the outcome of the 1973 season, the Dolphins may have had the best two-year run in NFL history. In those 2 years, Miami went a combined 32-2 and won 2 Super Bowls. The Dolphins outscored opponents 865-382 and had 5 shutouts. The problem, though, is that Miami's excellence in 73 gets lost in the hoopla about the undefeated 72 squad. And here's the kicker. The 2-loss 73 Dolphins may have been better than the 1972 team. I've heard Don Shula and several former players say the same. Just how good was Miami in 73? Let's do an analysis. Then I'll draw a conclusion. In comparative terms, Miami faced tougher competition in 73 than the 72 team. Excluding games that the competition played against the Dolphins, Miami's regular season opponents went 89-89 overall in 1973. Miami's regular season opponents went 70-108 overall in 1972. That's a big difference. And during the 73 regular season, the Dolphins played 6 teams with winning records, with 3 of those teams making the playoffs. The 1972 team, Miami played only 2 teams with winning records, and neither team made the playoffs. In 73, the Dolphins didn't allow a touchdown in 6 games, 2 which were shutouts. Overall, including 3 playoff games, the Dolphins allowed just 173 points, or 10 points a game. The undefeated 72 Dolphins had 3 shutouts, but they were all against bottom feeders. 2 were against the 5-9 Baltimore Colts. The other was against the 3-11 New England Patriots. Opponents' offenses scored 21 or more points 3 times against the 72 Dolphins. Yes, the 73 Dolphins lost 2 games, but each loss was circumstantial. One loss was to the 4-10 Colts in Week 13, after Miami had already clinched a playoff spot. The other loss, 12-7 to the Raiders, came in Week 2. Miami avenged that defeat in the AFC Championship game. What about postseason comparisons? The 1972 team struggled to beat the Cleveland Browns in its first playoff game. The Dolphins were down 14-13 late in the fourth quarter before Jim Kick scored a touchdown to win the game 20-14. A week later, Miami barely got by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC Championship game. The Dolphins trailed 17-14 before a fake punt set them up for the win, 21-17. It was more of the same in the Super Bowl, a 14-7 win over the Washington Redskins. The 73 Dolphins traveled a different path. They breezed through the postseason. It began with a 31-16 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals and continued with a 27-10 win over the Raiders. The Dolphins' running game was so overpowering against Oakland, 266 yards on 53 carries, that Bob Greasy threw just 6 passes the entire game and just 1 pass in the second half. Then the Dolphins dominated the Minnesota Vikings in the Super Bowl, winning 24-7. The Dolphins ran the ball down the throat of the Vikings' famed Purple People Eaters, rushing for 196 yards on 53 carries. Bob Greasy threw the ball just 7 times. The bottom line? Both teams were great, but I'd give the edge to the 73 team. What do you think?
Hi, this is Joe Ziemba, the host of When Football Was Football, here on the Sports History Network. I'm very pleased to announce that I will be partnering with the Sports History Network to give away 2 copies of my latest book called Bears vs. Cardinals, the NFL's Oldest Rivalry. To enter, just head over to the following link, sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways. We hope you'll enjoy the numerous stories in the book, which is largely based on the newly released Dutch Sterneman collection at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Dutch was the co-owner of the early Chicago Bears with George Halas and kept correspondence, financial records, and scouting reports, which now allow us to peek into the management of an NFL club during the first few years of the league's existence. Along the way, we'll meet unusual gridiron characters from years gone by, including a quarterback who could throw the ball farther behind his back than he could throwing it forward, a Bears lineman who was such a good tavern fighter that he decided to enter the boxing universe, and a Cardinals halfback who gave up the NFL rushing title by deciding to not show up for his team's final game of the season. And can we forget the time the Al Capone mob interrupted a Bears-Cardinals game? The new book was fun to research, and I hope you will enter our free contest today. Once the winners are selected, we'll be in touch regarding shipping as well as to inscribe the book personally for you. This might make a perfect gift for Mother's or Father's Day, or simply add it to your own personal collection. Once again, enter by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways. Thank you and good luck.